Well, good afternoon, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. I want to start by acknowledging that we are, thank you, Shelley, meeting on the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Wendat, the Métis, and the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nation. And I also, in saying that, want to say that we are all responsible for making sure that we take seriously our path towards reconciliation that we all must be engaged in, and particularly today when we were in question period, our MPP for the new largely indigenous riding of Quitnong, Saul Memakwa, asked our government to intervene with some supports at Cat Lake First Nation. Because as some of us have seen through the media, there is a serious housing crisis at Cat Lake, which has now turned into a public health crisis. So there's been an emergency declared. There are children with sores all over their bodies, all over their faces, rashes, children that are, he was talking today about a 12-year-old girl who was holed up in her bedroom and refuses to go out because of the stage of the blistering of her face that's caused from black mold across the community. And unfortunately, our government doesn't think that that's a public health crisis. I certainly do believe it's a public health crisis, and it's one of the things that we need to start to step up and take some responsibility for. There are many, many other things that we need to do, but as these crises continue to unfold in First Nations communities, the path to reconciliation is actually standing up and doing something and making life better for folks. So on that note, I want to thank Angela for the kind introduction. And of course, thank Doris and the RNAO for being such a powerful voice for the nursing profession and a leader in our province's public health policy development. Most importantly, thanks to each and every one of the nursing students, registered nurses, and nurse practitioners that are here. Thank you for your dedication, for your expertise, for your compassion, and for the inspiring work that you do for all of Ontarians. As you know, I look around the room and see people that I've seen for many, many events. I'm getting some waves. And I see a room of skilled healthcare professionals. And I imagine what our province would look like if you had a partner in government that shared the vision that you have. You see an Ontario where we fully fund high quality public health care. Most importantly, thanks to each and every one of the nursing students, registered nurses, and nurse practitioners here, your expertise, as I said, is amazing. You know, when I look around the room and see that the work that you do in hospitals and in long-term care and in home care and throughout our healthcare system, you envision an Ontario where nobody's loved ones have to wait for hours in a hallway or only to be treated on a gurney with no privacy and no dignity. Where healthcare professionals aren't run off their feet and stressed out to the max and forced every year to do even more with even less. You can see a place where every Ontarian and their loved one can get the care that they need, where they need it, and when they need it. A province where people don't have to skip their medications because they simply can't afford them. And where every child is valued and every kid has access to the upstream preventive care that they need to grow up healthy and access to the intensive treatments and supports they need, not hindered by costs. And of course, this is a reference to the debate we're having currently on the government's new autism program. Sadly, we know that that's not where we are right now. For years, we've all been told to settle for less in our province, to settle for overcrowded hospitals and understaffed long-term care homes. Nurses have been told to settle for working in environments that are being constantly short-staffed, You've been told to settle for working with the lowest RN to population ratio in all of Canada, and you've been told to deal with violence on the job that no one should ever have to face at work. You've got patients stuck in waiting rooms and stuck in hallways, and you've got residents in long-term care vying for the time and attention that they need. Sometimes it feels like our world-class healthcare system is hanging by a thread. Today, after years of cuts and funding freezes, Ontario spends less per person on healthcare than any other province, and it has been sad to watch successive governments brag about that fact. The previous government bragged about it constantly, and it looks like this government's taking us in an even worse direction. After 8 months of Doug Ford's government, a lot of folks are concerned that things are indeed getting much worse. Whether it's slashing planned mental health funding that Ontario desperately needed and was finally promised, or whether it's making devastating changes to the autism services, as I've already mentioned, or backroom scheming to overhaul healthcare and usher in unprecedented levels of privatization in our healthcare system, we know what we're seeing is not the promise of Ontario. What we are seeing is not the promise of this province. We know that patients and nurses deserve so much better than that. Vous méritez tellement mieux que ça. It's time to ask what more we can put into patient care, not what more we can cut out of it. But there's good news. You and I know that it's not too late to address these problems, and we know how to start tackling them because of the amazing work of the RNAO, because of each one of you and your passionate advocacy. So instead of doubling down on the cuts and the freezes and privatization that have already done so much damage, we're going to keep fighting for more investments in frontline care and our world-class public healthcare system. So instead of leaving people to struggle alone with deteriorating mental health, with addictions, and living without a whole roof over their head, battling homelessness, we're going to keep pushing for more supportive housing units, just like the RNAO has called for. And instead of allowing the quality of long-term care in our province to continue to deteriorate, we're going to keep pushing for more hands-on nursing and personal care for seniors in long-term care. In fact, the MDP, of course, has a bill that calls for a staffing ratio that guarantees that long-term care homes can offer 4 hours of hands-on care for residents each and every day. And we're going to keep pushing that bill until it becomes law. In fact, we tabled it, I think, for the third time now, back in July, and it's waiting to have second reading. As leader of the NDP and now as leader of the official opposition, it's been an honor to listen to stand with, and to partner with the RNAO over the years, and that's why I'm so glad to be here together with you again today to continue our work together, to continue to listen to you, to hear from you about how we can support your work and push the government every day to fix the things that aren't working. Your vision for healthcare in Ontario is a bright one, it's an inspiring one, and it's realistic. And I share your belief that we can, in fact, rebuild Ontario's world-class public, not-for-profit healthcare system. Ensemble, nous pouvons transformer l'Ontario. This is what gives me hope for the future. I know that we can do it. You know that we can do it. And I know that you and that every Ontarian deserves more from their government, not less. I know that if we work together, we can not just stop the province from backsliding, but we can actually move forward together. So I want to thank you very much. Once again, merci beaucoup, miigwech. And I know that you have some questions, and so I'm very much looking forward to that. Thank you for your kind attention.